It's always one and the same thing, isn't it? You are somewhere and you see something that someone else has. And then you think, I want to have that thing as well. Sometimes that is easily doable and you can say, okay, you have bought that thing in this or that shop. I go to this or that shop and I buy that thing for myself. But there are those things where it isn't possible so easily to get that thing as well. For example, if the person has bought the thing you want to have on a flea market, or if it's a like one-of-a-kind thing, then it's not so easy to get the same thing. And since several of you have written below my last video that they would kill for my Schrank I bought, that's a cabinet with drawers. Schrank is the German word. If you have missed the other video, perhaps you want to know that. And some of you have written that they would kill for that Schrank. So I thought, why don't we take something we already have and turn that into a tiny Schrank. In the end of this video, this will have turned into something like this. Hopefully similar. This is what I made in my German video. But I want to turn this thing, this little naked thing, into a tiny miniature Schrank, a little treasure chest, if you will. And this is not only like a thing, like a decorative piece for my craft room, but I also want to do something with this in the future for organization on my table while I'm crafting a junk journal. And perhaps you want to have something similar for your own craft room so that you can do, yeah, this method, let's call it a method, I want to do with this in a similar way like I do it. So this thing is not only an idea how you could get like a tiny Schrank into your room to store some treasures for junk journaling, but it shall also give you an idea how you could organize things on your desk while you craft a junk journal. Because that is also always the same thing. I mean, how often do we sit in front of our journal or in front of loose paper and we think, what the heck shall I do? What the heck shall I now put into my journal? What things could I craft for my journal? What ephemera could I make? And how can this whole junk journal thing that I have in front of me can come together? How can I decorate it and what can I put into it? And often I think, but that's only my personal opinion, but often it is about organizing your things you have, because I have the feeling that I sometimes don't use the things I have because I don't have them in front of my nose. I can't see them in that moment when I'm sitting here. And that's why I want to have something where I can put things inside, to have them on my table while I am working on a specific journal. That means the things which are going to be stored in this thing will change, so they will not, it will not be like I put something in here and then it will stay there forever and I take it from there. That is not what I want. I want to have this as something to temporarily store my things for a specific project. Now you could think, okay, we can't get her Schrank because that is obviously something she bought on locally on a, yeah, I don't want to call it flea market because it was not a flea market. It's like a store that is like a flea market, but a flea market store? I don't know. So perhaps you think we can't get her original Schrank. So how can we get something like this? I don't have something like this. Perhaps you think that in this moment. Please wait. Because I want you to search for a thing, if you want to imitate this, that you already have at home. Perhaps you have something similar to this. I haven't bought this for this project either. I have had this in my room because I got this from my dad a long time ago. This once belonged to my mother, and she had some buttons and stuff in here in her sewing room. And when she passed away, these things have been in the room, and then one day my father gave this to me. Or I asked if I can have it, and then he gave it to me because he didn't know that I could use this for something, but that doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is, search for something that you already have. I'm sure you have something similar to this somewhere in your basement or wherever. Something that you have decluttered, perhaps, and not thrown away yet. And if you can't find something like this and you want to buy something like this, then you can also find these things easily on Amazon. Just search for example, desk organizer or something similar, or also bathroom organizer could be helpful to find something like this. If you don't want to spend money and if you want to craft something like with your own hands from scratch, you could also think about making little boxes from cardboard or so. If you are into that, and if you know how to fold a box, yeah, then please do that, because that can be used for this idea as well. That doesn't have to be something like this. You could even take those boxes for the refrigerator. They don't even have to be in such a thing. Yeah, you can, in this case, take them and put them in here so that there's a little holder for them. But this thing is not necessarily important for my idea. So if you want to follow and if you want to do something like this, then you can do that in any way you want. The thing is, you need something to store tiny things. Yeah, that is the main point. You could even take loose boxes with a lid or so and then stack them on top of each other or so. You don't need something like this, but perhaps you want to watch this video as an inspiration, follow my channel, watch the future videos, then everything will going to become really clear. I have the problem at the moment that I can't show you everything in one video, or I could show you everything in one video, but that would be way too much. So I have decided to split this a little bit, and probably this whole thing makes sense in a few days when you have seen the other videos and what I want to do with this. Yeah, so, but I wanted to have the information that we are going to do something with this in this video as well, so that you're not thinking, hey, why is she crafting such a tiny cabinet when she has a big cabinet in her room? That doesn't make sense. So I wanted to let you know that I have plans with this. Or perhaps you want to know the measurements of this. I know that there are some people out there who always want to know that very exactly. So this is, let me tell you that in inch. This is 9.5 inch wide approximately. And it's 4.5 deep. And this is a little bit more than 6.5 high. So if you want to search for something in similar measurements like mine is, then you could perhaps take those measurements. And now I want to turn this plastic, so this is just regular plastic, into something that looks a little bit like wood. By the way, these things have dividers. Where is this divider now? Perhaps you want to search for something like that as well. There are these little things which you can put in here. So there are 3 of these things, so that you then have 3, not apartments, compartments. Sorry, 3 of these, so that you have 4 compartments then, but you can change the size of those. And I found that really good, because the things in here will have different sizes, and they will perhaps not always have the same size every single time we use this little guy. Yeah, so it could be helpful to have something with either different sized compartments, or where you can change the size of the compartments with the help of those dividers. I hope that this is not too confusing. So let's turn this into wood, okay? So I have some distress paint here, Vintage Photo, Gather Twigs and Scorched Timber. That is a really good mixture. Even if that word is probably a little bit confusing, because I will not mix them. I want to put them on here a little bit like irregularly. So I'm going to take a paintbrush. I will have that pretty dry in the beginning, so that I control better what I'm doing. Then I start with Scorched Timber, and I just paint these, and then I realize that this is a little bit too dry, but better to dry than to liquid. So then I just go over this, and with sanding this thing, so, oh sorry, you could see I have then taken Vintage Photo and Gather Twigs just with my paintbrush, just to get a variation of the colors here. And with the sanding I could reach 2 different things. First, the paint can hold better on this material, which is plastic. I mean, it can dry on plastic. Distress paint is, yeah, really good for painting plastic. But with the sanding it holds even better. But I wanted to reach something else with the sanding, and that is that I get little scratches, which then make, in combination with my brush strokes, that this looks like wood. Can you see? So I will also go over this little edge here, and I'm so hoping that you like this idea. To be honest, this idea came to me last night while I was chatting with a dear junk journal friend, and she said something that had nothing to do with this, and then suddenly I was like, oh my goodness, I have to go, I have to do something. And she was like, what? And I was like, I have to go, I have no time anymore, bye bye. And originally I wanted to do something completely different for today's video, but sometimes you have to change your plans, because I think that this is really not only a cool idea, but it can be really helpful for several different things, especially if you consider yourself a beginner. Perhaps you know that I don't like the word beginner when it comes to junk journaling, because for me, in junk journaling, there can't be beginners, because if you found junk journaling, then you already have skills. For example, you can already embroider, and then you found junk journaling because you can put embroidery elements into junk journals as well, and perhaps that is the reason why you've even found it. Or you have made scrapbooks in the past, and now you found junk journaling. That is probably a little closer to the comparison embroidery and junk journaling, but perhaps you know what I mean. You already have skills, otherwise you probably wouldn't have found junk journaling. Because when you search for something and then find junk journaling, I think you have searched for something that had to do with the skills you already have. Do you know what I mean? And that is why I think that there are no beginners in, I mean, it can't be, no, Luise. Beginners aren't existing in junk journaling, because everyone who starts with junk journaling has already skills. And if you already have skills, then you can't be a beginner. That is not possible. But if you consider yourself a beginner, I mean, we need a word, yeah, for those who just started with junk journaling. But I like to say it in that way. If you started with junk journaling, and you don't know how to organize all of your things, and especially I don't talk about only the general organization you have in your room, but I especially talk about how you organize your desk while you are crafting on a junk journal or on cards, ephemera or whatever. This is also handy for other things, not only for whole junk journals. And I'm also not necessarily talking about the tools you have around you or how you have organized your tools, but I'm talking about those tiny things we are crafting for a junk journal, like, for example, clusters or hidden paper clips, tuck spots, pockets, tiny bits and pieces like sewn ruffles or so. All of these tiny things, page tabs, everything that we want to include in the journal. I'm talking about those things. Because when you craft them, what do you do with them then? Especially if you don't have a craft room, but you have, for example, your living room or your dining room or whatever room where you have to do your things. And then in the end, when you have finished your craft session for the day, you have to put everything away. I know that there are many people who don't have a craft room. And for those, this could be really good as well, because that way, when you have something like this tiny drawer here, you can put everything in here, and then you can just take that thing and put it away. And the good thing is it looks decorative at the same time, so you don't have the feeling that you have something weird in your room, which looks like, you know, a weird storage box or so. Because this you could even put as a decoration on your shelf or so, and your neighbors who come to drink a coffee with you would not think, "Hey, what is that?" Do you know what I mean? So if you bought something like this, then, or if you made boxes from a different material or so by yourself, then please have the material in mind. So this is plastic. That means acrylic paint will work on this. I would recommend to sand it with a sandpaper, as you've seen a second ago. If you have other materials, then please think about the mediums you can use on that. Please make sure that the mediums can dry on here and that they are permanent on here. This is distress paint, so I can use this cool effect with water. When distress paint is wet, you can do what I'm doing here, just throw some water on, and then you will get a very similar effect to what we know from the distress ink. This takes forever to dry, but it's worth it, please believe me. You could also, if you perhaps have problems with sandpaper, or, I mean, this is a little dusty thing when you sand it. If you don't want to sand this because you have problems with your health or so, with dust, you could even take alcohol ink to do this. That would dry way faster and you would get a nice result as well. but I wanted to have this looking like wood because I wanted to have something that looks very similar to my big cabinet. So that's the reason why I did the thing with the distress paint, but you could also take alcohol ink, then you would have finished this within seconds. And that was also something I wanted to have for you, so that, I mean, if you have something like this and you take alcohol ink, then this could be finished in half an hour or so. If you think I want to put a little more effort into this, then you could, of course, think about different other mediums. You could think about decoration or whatever. While I make examples, let us take these. These are just some pieces of watercolor paper. I will glue 2 of these to each other so that I then later on can put them in here. I've already cut them to the right size. I take 2 so that that is a little more sturdy, because one of these is a little too flimsy for me, and this gap in here is pretty big, so that I need or I can have a little thicker material, but probably your thing will be different. So please do this, yeah, like customized to the thing you have bought or you have found in your basement or so. And yeah, depending on your time, depending on how much effort you want to put into this, probably depending on how wonderful you find this idea. If you hate this idea, you will probably not do it. If you think, okay, I want to have this like storage idea, but I don't need something that looks beautiful, yeah, then the amount of work you want to put into this is probably different. If you think, I have a craft room, but I don't care about that it looks nice, then you can, of course, also just take some boxes and do this thing. But if you are into decorating things like this stuff, then you could, of course, also think about using other pieces to decorate this whole thing. I also already thought about some. I'm not so sure if I will do that or if I will just leave it like it is, because I already like my result. But I thought about, for example, some steampunk elements, or, you know, from ideology there are some numbers, metal numbers, or these white letters which came out recently. You could also use those to just decorate this thing. That's also, of course, depending on how your thing is constructed. If you have something like this handle here, then of course the flat space on here is not so much like on something that doesn't have this handle. But I think you have a brain, don't you? And you can think about what you could do and come up with ideas. I mean, what am I doing here? I want to inspire you, and I want to, yeah, I also want to help you, because this also came from the reactions of our community. I mean, how do I decide what I do in my videos and what I show you? That is, of course, something I enjoy to do, but of course I read the comments and I try to get conclusions out of those comments. And this is something that resulted from your comments as well, because, yeah, not only because you said you want to kill, or you would kill for my cabinet, but of course I want to have something that is helpful for you. But at the same time, it's really, in this case, it's really hard to show that and to give this inspiration, because, yeah, you have to please turn on your own brain, because I can't I can't give you an information where this is from. I have no idea. I can't link this thing for you because it's already really old. And perhaps, yeah, I think you got me. Why is this so wonky? Oh my goodness, is this too short? I don't know. We will see. For these paper thingies here, I have used some sprays and then I went over that with some oxide ink because these paper thingies turned out a little bit too irregular for me. What I do now might seem a little bit confusing and not so logical, but I do what I did here on my plain things here to get a really similar look to this. I want to try to get a similar look, so that means I need to do the same things like I did on the other thing, even if that was probably a little bit, yeah, not so good. So I have spritzed a little bit of water, and now where's my, oh, here. Now I want to have some oxide sprays, brushed corduroy, frayed burlap, vintage photo. What is this doing here? And some spray stain scorched timber. So that is what I did on the others as well. And the problem with that was, look, even with the water, this turned out too irregular. Now you can't see it so well, but in a second when I dry this, you will see that it looks weird. And that's why I, yeah, like calmed it down with going over that whole thing with some Scotch Timber oxide ink. Ugh. So to make them look not so busy anymore. So I will quickly dry these, and perhaps you have a craft room which is totally in a clean style and not grungy at all. I mean, this will turn out obviously a little bit grungy. Then you could customize these as well and do them in the style you like. You could even do them in, like, you know, flower pattern or whatever. So then with these little guys, I want to do the following thing. I want to have some labels. And now you could think, what the heck is she doing? These are already labels. Yes, this is meant to do it like this. Take something like this and put it in here. And then you could write what is inside the drawer to this little label. But I want to also imitate my big cabinet with this. So I thought I want to have these labels on there. So I need 6 of them. And yes, I will take different colors, because I take what I have here. Hopefully I have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are all bigger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I have one more in this color? No, I don't. Let's take that. So then let's take these and let's try to center them. I'm using the grid here on the mat, so that we then can bring them all into the same position on each of these things. I will make a hole, or let's say a little mark here with my awl, and then I want to take a punch through here, and then I can take this as a template for the others. That's clever, isn't it? Jo, hereinspaziert. Oh my goodness. Please excuse those noises in the background. I just got some guests. They have to do something with the electricity in my apartment. I'm hoping that I can do this here, even while they are there. So then I'm going to take the labels and some brads. Since my brads are so small, I want to glue the label additionally to this thing, and not only use the brads, because I think that is not so durable. So I will first take this, put this here where the holes are, so I can see through them, through the hole of the label and the hole in the paper. And then I take my brads and just put this here, spread the legs here on the back, so that it then looks like this. And I will do this for the others as well. And I think one of the reasons why this idea came to my mind is your reaction to my printable I made from my other cabinet, or from my cabinet. I already say other because this feels already like, yeah, like a second cabinet, like a little child of the big cabinet. If you have missed my last video, then let me quickly explain what I did. I found a ton of treasures in that cabinet in form of old labels and inscriptions, and I turned that into a digital, which is called Labels der Schrank. Schrank means cabinet in German. And your reaction to that printable, holy moly guacamole, it was just amazing. You have written so many wonderful messages, and you have told me that you enjoy having something which is in my craft room in your craft room, and I really appreciate your words, especially because so many of you have realized how much work it was to digitize. I think I said this word in the past, always wrong. Those things. It took me a ton of hours to do that, but I did that for you, and that you could see why I did that. That was the most wonderful thing for me. And I'm so thankful and happy about all of your reactions to that printable. You are just so wonderful. Because when I sit here and I talk to... Oh my goodness. My vacuum cleaner is talking to me. Holy cow. I think they turned out. Oh, okay, no, we don't have light anymore. I'm so sorry. Can you see that something? Oh my goodness. You are now live here with me on the day where I finally get warm water in my apartment. And that is why the men are there and why they are doing something with the electricity, and obviously they just have turned it off. But I'm so happy that that will happen today. I will get warm water, yes. And you are live here on the day where I will get my kitchen. Finally, the man who will build it up just called me that he will arrive in a few minutes. And I'm so happy. So I have to pause my process here. But I want to let you know, even without light, that I really appreciate your reactions to that printable. Of course, it's linked below this video, so if you have missed the other video and if you want to check that out, the video and the printable is linked below. You are just so cute, because when I sit here and create something and have an idea for you, that doesn't automatically mean that you like the idea as well. And in that moment when I create that, I don't know if you will like it. Of course not. I'm not a fortune teller. And when I then get those reactions I got with that printable with the labels, oh my goodness. I know why I do all of this work. And I know why I'm here and why we are here together. And that is just so wonderful. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, now I have to pause this. That kills my nerves a little bit, but there's no other way. Okay, so we have light again. Let's see. This is not completely dry yet. As you can see, it's a little glossy, still a little bit glossy. And now I want to get a similar effect like I already have here. Perhaps you can see here, there's the gray of the plastic, this original color, coming through. And I did that on the one hand because I wanted it matching the other sides of this little container. I will not paint the sides and the bottom. I mean, why shall I do that? I think that's a little bit like waste of medium because we don't see this. I know that is a little bit weird. But I want this like a matching color to this because the gray is here, even if I don't care about it, but it's here. So I take a dry paper towel and carefully, really, really gently go over this. That way I can remove a tiny little bit of the paint, get this like, to me it looks like a nearly like chalky effect. On the one, that is the one effect. The other effect is that I can get rid of these really harsh lines here. I don't like that so much. That looks a little bit too vintage to me, if that is possible. And don't be afraid, when this is completely dry, it's absolutely permanent. Yeah, I think that looks very good. So then I have taken out a label which is not attached to these yet, so that I'm able to cut some little pieces here to put them inside. And I use this thing as a template. This is also some watercolor paper. I just want to cut 6 of these. And I will not write anything to these labels today because I want to show you in detail in one of my upcoming videos how I want to do this whole stuff. And I don't want to confuse you by writing the things I want to have here, but we will do that together in one of the next videos so that you can better understand what I mean when I do this, because I think that is really somehow a weird thing. But it's good, I promise. This is going to become really good. So let's put these in here. Like this, so that I then, I mean, I can always take them out later. And this thing can go in here. On my original cabinet, there are some, or there have been some plastic things over the labels to protect the labels, I guess. And I think that this is a little bit too wide for the whole thing. This looks not so grungy. So I thought about what could I put inside here in between of the metal label and the white piece of paper. And I searched for some things. I found some mica sheets that could be a thing. So this is completely transparent. This is a little bit milky. That could be a nice thing to put in here. I think you could also use some packaging or so from cheese or whatever. But I came to the idea, why don't I use the original plastic things from my cabinet? Because some of these were a little bit broken. Some have been like too small somehow. And these are, yeah, like not only the originals from my cabinet, but they are originally altered. Not altered, that is the wrong word. Oh, it reminds to the German word gealtert, but that is not the same thing. Aged. They are like naturally aged. And why can't I use these? Because look here, for my big cabinet, I had the problem that this was too dangerous for me. And yeah, as I said, some of them are like completely broken. Some of the original ones somehow obviously have gotten smaller over the years. I don't know why. Or perhaps it was like from the very beginning when someone has put that into the original drawer, into the big one, that there was a problem with measurements. Perhaps someone like me has measured these things. Then I would not be surprised why they are too small. But they also are a little bit round. You can see that here on the bigger one better, can you see? And that makes it really hard to read when something is behind here on the big cabinet. But here, when I have this small thing, this round thing is not so big anymore. And that is good, because that way I can use them. I have a piece from my big cabinet here on the small one. And that, to be honest, makes me really happy. And if you have a clear acetate or something like this and you want to make it even older, then I can recommend some alcohol ink. So I'm going to use some mushroom alcohol ink, since I learned that that color makes everything more vintage. You can tell that I'm really in love with that. And that's why I use that a lot. I think it would be the same catastrophe if I had no milk or no mushroom ink, alcohol ink in my apartment. That would be the same disaster. So now I go over here and I want to smear with my finger a little bit of this into the thing here, so that it looks like someone has cleaned the label just by going over it like this. And I think that is exactly what happened on my original cabinet as well. The labels look very, very much like that, especially this plastic, and I want to imitate that a little bit. Where is my paste? So I use a little bit of Forest Moss Distress Re-Inker. This is the Distress Ink Re-Inker. The tiniest little bit. I want it pretty greenish, even if the grit paste crypt itself dries a little bit greenish. But on this, it's not enough green for me. So I want to have this really like, yeah, a little bit slimy like moss. I don't want to go crazy with this, but I want to put it here and there to this thing so that it looks really a little bit slimy. But what I now really want to know is, do they fit together, or can you see that they were made in 2 different sessions? No, I think it's okay. The paste is not dry here yet. When the paste is dry, it looks like this, like here. Really slimy, really cool. And what you also could do is, I mean, if you compare this to my original cabinet, you can see we have some similar things, like, you know, these little drawers with the labels, but what we don't have is this little handle to take that out, because we already have this. Yeah, so why shall I put something on here that could be for decoration, of course? So if I say, okay, I want to have this even more similar to my original cabinet, then I could think about something which I could attach here under each of the labels, so that it looks more like a single drawer, this thing, yeah? And what could you use for that? First idea, these ideology things, knobs, drawer knobs, I think is the word, I don't know, I think so. For mine, this is a little bit too big. Unfortunately, they are a little bit too big, and unfortunately this is the only one I have. I think there are different ones available that would look absolutely stunning, I guess, if you would drill a hole into this and then just attach them. Another possibility also from Idea-ology would be these little guys. These are perhaps a little bit too small. And my problem is I don't have enough of these. I would have to order some more to make this work. If you want to have these and make them bigger, perhaps you want to think about a button. Or what I also could imagine is just gluing one button here and use different ones. That could look absolutely fantastic as well. But you could also drill a hole through the button to be able to make this Idea-ology thing there a little more bigger, more visible somehow. I think that looks really cool. And what I also find really interesting, if you use some of these, if your construction allows to use these. But if you have something where you can put them on, like here, like so, for example, then that could look really great as well. I find that really interesting and really decorative. In my upcoming videos, I will of course also show you how I use these, how and especially with what we label these and what we will put in them. You will see these very often in my upcoming videos. I will use these on a regular basis in the future, and perhaps you want to make something like this for yourself as well, to follow along and do that like, yeah, like an experiment together with me, because you know, this idea is in my head and I think that is a good idea, but I haven't tried it out over a longer period of time. Yeah, so if you want to make something like this, then you can go on a little adventure together with me and we can try if what I want to do with these really works for us when we make a junk journal and when we work on a journal to make our life a little easier. Okay, that sounds like a miracle or something. That sounds like a riddle somehow. But please follow follow this channel and stay tuned for the next videos, and I will exactly explain you what I want to do with this and the method behind these. So I hope this is something you want to try, and I wish you a very great and creative day. See you the next time. Bye bye.